Are you willing to do what it takes to be healthy? And then I ask them how their health has been in the last 2 years. It is the same thing when people are making goals. If you're making a goal for 1 month or 1 year, you overestimate what you can do in a month or a year, but you underestimate what you can do in 3 months or 3 years. And it's the same thing with your health. So when I ask people that question, where is it that you want to be and how healthy are you? And where do you think you have glitches or don't have glitches? If women could remember how painful childbirth was, we wouldn't have to worry about the extra billion people on the planet. But after that experience, it's that overcomeness where oh, but isn't the baby so beautiful?
Welcome to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, the show where we ask the questions, why aren't more lawyers living flourishing lives and inspiring others? And can you really get wealthy while doing only the work you love with people you like? Many lawyers are. Get ready to hear from your host, Ben Glass, the founder of the law firm Ben Glass Law in Fairfax, Virginia, and Great Legal Marketing, an organization that helps good people succeed by coaching, inspiring, and supporting law firm owners. Join us for today's conversation.
Hey everyone, this is Ben Glass. Welcome back to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, where every episode I get to interview really interesting people who are inside or outside of the legal profession, but who are making a ding in the world. Today, I've got a great guest, Dr. Pat Boulogne. Dr. Pat is a health, wellness, and mindset strategist, so you can already tell why I have her on the call. Over 38 years of experience in the field. She's based out of Ithaca, New York, and empowers executives and entrepreneurs, people like us, to achieve their health goals through personalized lifestyle medicine programs. She is the author of the bestseller, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired?, which is published in 2019. And that book addresses a lot of the common health misconceptions and offers very actionable insights for improving one's health. Dr. Pat, we try to talk about this a lot in our coaching programs. It's not just like, why do you want to build a practice, get more clients, and make more money, unless you are moving towards something. And I believe it is moving towards a life that is full of happiness and health and longevity. So let me just open here, and we'll come back and talk about your journey first. These people that you serve, I serve, are very smart, advanced graduate degrees, running businesses. There is no loss of information that they could go and get. They know, in air quotes, what they should be doing, I think, and they want, in air quotes, to be healthy. But yet it is a challenge. In the legal industry, there's a lot of sadness, depression, there's a lot of ill health. But I think across most professions, if you go look at the literature in dentistry, probably even chiropractic, right? There's a lot of folks who are running businesses, doing good work, and yet they struggle with this. So welcome to the program today. I'm curious about why this is still so hard.
It's so hard because people want it to be hard and they don't want to get out of that box. It's just like they have a zone of comfort and they like staying in that zone of comfort. And when you're working at, like, perhaps pushing past that zone of comfort, people don't like to change. They like it simple. I met somebody last night. We were talking about iodine, how iodine is important for a lot of functions in the body. So I had my Mercurochrome bottle out, and I opened my Mercurochrome bottle and I just put a patch on the skin. And technically it should probably be there for maybe a good 6, 8, maybe even 12 hours. And she goes, why is that important? And I said, do you have a thyroid? Are you breathing? And I said, it was an essential component. It's a hormonal regulator. You need it. And gave her a fact sheet. I found it this morning. It's just the consciousness of some people. They just don't want to get into that point to where, oh my God, if I find out about this, now I have to do something about it. And then how do I sort that out?
It's interesting. You just used a word, Mercurochrome, that I have not heard since I was little. And when I was young, Mercurochrome was the cure-all for every cut or scratch that you had that didn't require sutures. Your mom or your dad put Mercurochrome, I can still picture it, I could probably still smell it if I think about this for a bit, on the wound. And I've just have not heard anyone reference Mercurochrome in ages.
I have some.
If someone were to do a self-assessment or to come in and see somebody like you, walk me through the questions you would ask or someone could ask themselves to have some initial evaluation of, am I truly healthy? Because many of us believe that we're healthy. We don't feel ill. Oftentimes lawyers will say, I don't really feel stressed, but if you talk to their spouse or their family, there's a disconnect there. So what are some of the ways that you would approach getting information out of a new patient that will help you judge the real state of that person's health?
One of my first questions I always ask people, even when I speak from stage, I'll always ask people, who's into their health? Inevitably, the majority of people who want to engage in that conversation usually raise their hand. Then I ask who is into longevity. Most of those hands stay up. Some of them come down. But then when I ask the question, who's willing to invest in their health? You see people put their hands down, and I always ask, do you think you're losing blood supply to your arm? And also the other question I ask people, besides what would you do? Are you willing to do what it takes to be healthy? And then I ask them how their health has been in the last 2 years. It is the same thing when people are making goals. If you're making a goal for 1 month or 1 year, you overestimate what you can do in a month or a year, but you underestimate what you can do in 3 months or 3 years. And it's the same thing with your health. So when I ask people that question, where is it that you want to be and how healthy are you? And where do you think you have glitches or don't have glitches? If women could remember how painful childbirth was, we wouldn't have to worry about the extra billion people on the planet. But after that experience, it's that overcomeness where oh, but isn't the baby so beautiful? It's just that because if women really remember, they just remember it hurt. They just don't remember how much it hurt. I think that when you assess from that point of view and understand that people always are forgiving themselves unless they have a crisis, and then they want you to create miracles a lot of times. Whether it's in your business, right? Because people a lot of times, I always feel like you wouldn't let your business get in crisis. Why do you let your health get in crisis?
And in business, in our Great Legal Marketing, we often talk about, hey, doing this initial assessment and then figuring out, okay, now what is the most efficient and productive use of your next dollar and your next hour, realizing that you can't fix everything that's wrong in your business overnight. You said we overestimate what we can do in a few months and we underestimate what we can do in a matter of years. So a new patient comes to you, let's just say mid-40s, we can start there. You do this initial assessment of their health. What is a reasonable delta between where they are and where working with somebody like you can get them?
First off, you have to understand where they're at and meet them where they're at. So it's just like in asking questions, do you have a physical complaint? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, whatever it is, what's that complaint? And then you need to find out, when was the onset? How long has it been going on a 1 to 10, how much is interfering with your life? Or how much pain is it? How committed are you to getting it resolved? And because there's no processes that does not require time. It's a 6 chiropractic principle, and it applies to anything in life. That one piece of like in asking those questions, you have to find out where they're at. So then when you find out where they're at and you do chiropractic, you do orthopedic and neurological and chiropractic evaluation, you might take x-ray films so that you can see how the bones are lined up when they're in weight-bearing status. And then you give them a report of findings. This is what you said, this is what you want, and this is where you want to go. This is how I know I can get you there. And if you want to get there faster and you add in the component of exercise or nutrition or improving your sleep, improving your mental attitude, improving your structure, function, biomechanics, then you can get there a lot faster and it will stay with you longer. So it's having that awareness about what health is and what health isn't. Because by the definition of Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it said that health is your organs functioning 100% of the time, but you don't know that. And so what you do know is you know how you feel. I can walk up a hill and I'm not winded. I can ride a bike. I can play with my grandkids without being tired. I can remember things that happened to me when I was 5 years old. We just talked about Mercurochrome, but it's like that tag word that brings that picture up of exactly what that bottle looked like. So for people who wanted to go from point A to point Z, you have to know what path. Do you want to take the slow road to Rome, or do you want to go take the direct flight? And do you want to fly first class, or do you want to fly business class, or you want to be in the nosebleed section of the plane? Where is it that you want to be? Because I can create any program for anybody. Because what I do is so individualized, especially when I'm working virtually, that I was like, hey, so tell me what's going on. And then inevitably, you always find out this other stuff that is happening or happened to them in their life that they buried someplace emotionally in their body. And it's just, why every time I get to this point, I kick myself and I'm like hitting the wall. It's like, why do I feel like I'm hitting my head? Why am I not sleeping? All those things like that. So there's not just one pathway for somebody. There can be numerous pathways. And then you could have this, oh my God moment. And some people are like, wow, they forget to tell you the traumas because your brain erases them because it doesn't want to remember the negative. It wants to remember the positive. And if we just feed that positivity, we can have better health just by thinking about it. If you think you're going to have a bad day, you will have a bad day.
That's interesting. So yes, absolutely. The body never forgets, right? A lot of great work on trauma. But I believe, as you do, that the filter through which you see the world has a tremendous effect on what kind of day you are going to have. We all experience, and we have little control over what the world is sending us in terms of experiences, but how our body and our brain sees, interprets, appreciates, responds to those events is a big determinant. So talk a little bit about that. This is psycho-cybernetics. This is how do I appreciate the world? But you and I, we run into grumpy people, right? Who see the world as cloudy. If you were coaching or had as a patient someone who sees the world as cloudy, and they've never been introduced to anything like this, Pat. Like this language is foreign to them. How do you start to move them towards how you see the world is a big determinant?
When somebody has a tendency to be on the negative side, I usually tell them to stop it. Because a lot of people put themselves down without knowing it. They got so used to doing it, it's just like a normal thing. Even with the woman with the iodine thing, she said, I'm not smart enough to understand that. And I said, well, that's because you haven't taken time to read it. My level of common sense, came out of the chute with a lot of common sense. Even when I've worked with elite athletes, and if I'm watching somebody do something functional, and having a conversation with them, I said, have you ever tried to start out on your left foot instead of your right foot on the balance beam? As a chiropractor for the Cape Cod gymnastics when I had my practice there. And there was this girl who just kept on screwing up. And I decided that, I go, let's try your left foot instead. And she excelled. And what I said, I go, did you go to a Catholic school? And she said, I did. And I said, did you have nuns in your school? She was like 15 at the time. She said, we have nuns. And I said, did they make you write with your right hand when you should have been writing with your left? Because your dominant side was your left side. So she had much more stability and she was much more elegant in all her maneuvers that she did. Mounting and dismounting off the balance beam was like a total difference. They went, how did you see that? And I just went, I don't know. It's just a gut instinct kind of thing. And athletes, when someone's trying to stretch, did you try to stretch? I had patients when I filled in for a doctor one time, and this guy came in the next day after I adjusted his shoulder. He goes, oh my God, it's killing me. So he spoke Spanish. And the woman who was an interpreter for him I said to her, did you ask him if he used ice? And he said, no, he didn't. I said, you deserve to hurt. Because I told him, it's going to hurt, use ice, make sure you put it in a certain position. And I'm very clear with my communication when I'm going to work with somebody on that, where I'm going to make that kind of change. And then he just laughed. And the next thing he came in, he goes, feel good, because he used the ice. He didn't realize how important some of those things that you say to people to go from point A to point C are. And there's stepping stones. You can either take the long way or you can take the short way. You want to take the short way, then listen to me.
Hey guys, this is Ben. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast, not just the marketing and practice building strategies, but the philosophy of the art of living your best life parts, you should know that my son Brian and I built a tribe of like-minded lawyers who are living lives of their own design and creating tremendous value for the world within the structure of a law practice. We invite you to join us at the only membership organization for entrepreneurial lawyers that is run by 2 full-time practicing attorneys. Check us out at greatmiddlemarketing.com.
And you work with, say, high functioning athletes or what I call high end executives. Do you find that that's kind of like a different person who shows up? Because most athletes, they want to get back to top level performance, right? I imagine most executives, I would think, want to be able to work at a high level and produce at a high level. Do you find working with these types of achievers is different than working with folks? What's the difference, do you think?
Somewhat. When I worked the Boston Marathon, it's just like we worked in the medical tent, and when people came from the race at the very end, I did a lot of triage. I was like, you go here, you go to physical therapy there, that kind of thing. When the Kenyan runners ran in the Falmouth Road Race, they were beautiful. They'd come across as 81 degrees in July, and they'd come across the last crest in the Falmouth Road Race, and you would see them come in formation. These guys just got done running 6 miles and they're not sweating. But my girlfriend used to house them. So I always asked her, what do they eat? I want to know what they eat, because eating what you put in your mouth really controls what happens with your gut, like how motivated you are. If you eat a lot of sugar, you're never going to be really motivated. An elite athlete, it will falter. You will not have that same robust attack to what you're doing. Same things for the high performance executives and entrepreneurs who have to keep on their game, because you can't keep on your game if you don't take care of your basic essentials. And those basic essentials go back to the 5 pillars of health: structure, function. It has to do with your mindset. It has to do with how much sleep you get. Sleep is really restorative, and it repairs and revitalizes you for the future. It has to do with exercise. You've got to move. You have to move on a regular basis. And you also have the piece of it for the nutrition. But I think the most important, I always ask executives, I go, what is it? What's more important, robust health or robust mindset? And they always want to justify one or the other. But I say that they're equally important, because if you don't have that mindset, and then you wonder why you can't lose weight. Or when you get up in the morning going, I don't feel like working out today, I'm not going to work out. That kind of thing. That mindset will prevent you from doing it, because you're thinking, if I have a strong mind, where my mind goes, my body follows. And where my body goes, then I want it to be as healthy as possible. Then you do things that are outside the box that you need to do. Look at David Asprey. He's like a biohealth hack person who has all these wonderful things. Some of them are like way out there. The other things that he talks about are so right on target, that when somebody wants to be that exuberant and be on their game, it's like someone who plays golf. Someone loses their attention span in golf. It's usually because of what they ate, or because the telephone is buzzing in their pocket. And then their swing's off. And to get that swing back on, you really have to go back to basics, go down to your foundation, sit yourself up. I used to be almost a scratch golfer, and I worked with the LPGA. So I have had a lot of experience on that front also, and watching people like, hey, your mind just went over there, bring it back and put it back in your body, and then reset back up. There's things that specifically anchors that you can do to help support you do that. But I think elite athletes, high performance executives have that one piece in common, because they don't say no. They say, how many times do I have to do that? How many glasses of water do I have to drink? And they just put it on their to-do list and they do it. It's a non-event.
If they have a plan from a trusted advisor, they'll execute on the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you about mindset. I think this is critical. So you take a typical sort of middle-aged executive. How hard have you found it to change someone, their mindset? There's all sorts of levels, right? Between the least growth mindset to entrepreneurs who just think of everything as a possibility, right? There's all sorts of levels in between. I found it's very difficult to move someone more than 1 or 2 levels in their lifetime, in their adult coaching lifetime. What have you found about that? And then my follow-up question now, again, they didn't grow up at the dinner table with these conversations. They haven't run into people like you. They've not read the success literature. They're not into it, right? What do we do to get them to see the world of possibilities? Is that possible for us who are coaching?
I believe it's all about awareness. One time I was driving out west, and I stopped in Little Rock. And I left Memphis, Tennessee, saying a Hail Mary. I couldn't wait to get out of there. And then I ended up in Little Rock. When I got there, this guy said, to hit my Massachusetts plates on my car, he goes, ma'am, you are really far away from home, aren't you? And so what was special about that moment was I decided, being in Florida and being in acupuncture school there, I never left anything in my car. So I emptied out my back seat of my car on this trip. And then I said, so what are you doing here? And I told him I just came from the godforsaken Memphis, Tennessee. And he goes, well, that's where I'm from. And I was like, okay, Pat, put your foot in your mouth. And so he had all these kids with him who were there for basketball camp and basketball tournament. And he said they weren't doing that good. And I said, you want me to talk to them? He goes, sure. What are you going to talk to them about? I'm going to talk to them about their dream. And so when I went in, I put myself in my room and came in, and there was like 30 kids who were about maybe 8 to 10 years old in that basketball camp. I said, who's your favorite player? Okay, everybody, let's play a game. Close your eyes. Picture, see that person doing their favorite shot when they're playing basketball. Is it going for a basket? Is it dribbling? What are they doing that they do well, that you admire them so much and that you love them for? And you could see these kids smiling and having a good time. And so I said, pretend it's you. And it was funny because I thought, oh, they're never going to get that part. And this kid told me afterwards, he said, I can be just like Rodman. And that's all he said to me. And I went, great. One person got it out, or maybe 2 or 3. But it was interesting to give them the idea that if you can see it, you can have it. And if you start young and you have older people who are executives and entrepreneurs, and even like the regular people, so to speak, and when they can see it, they can have it too. The high performance and the elite athletes, they already know how to get there. They just know that they have to push themselves an extra minute faster, or they know that they have to get up a half hour earlier if they want to start reading books every morning, and do one more thing to work out if they wanted to work out. And other people have, how do they do that? You have to ask yourself, who does that anyway? Because if you know who does that anyway, then you can find them and you can imitate and you can emulate them and let them inspire you to do something even better.
Exactly. I think one of the roles that coaches play is to be able to point to examples of people who have been in similar situations or had less to begin with, and who've created great lives, great businesses, whatever. There's so many questions I want to ask you. Let me just go back to diet for a moment and what we put in our mouth. I think if you look at the stats, like most of America seems to meet the obesity standard on most indexes. What would you do if you were the diet czar? How would you change health through diet in America?
Oh, easy. I would get rid of sugar and get rid of the sugary drinks, the sugary foods, and the crappy foods that people eat on a regular basis, and make whole foods or organic foods the norm. And even for grocery shopping, things like that, just get rid of the stuff that doesn't matter. Nobody needs to drink Coca-Cola to begin with, because if we honor our bodies and our mind as temples, then you would feed them correctly. And so some parents give their kids, because that's how they learn. And I always say to somebody, they go, oh, I'm destined to have heart disease. I go, no, you're not. You're not your DNA. You're only your DNA if you give yourself the environment for that to blossom. And I go, so you have to really do that. So that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
I think you're right. And if someone owned a $2 million racehorse, they wouldn't be feeding that racehorse anything but the finest foods for racehorses, right?
For sure. You wouldn't feed your Ferrari, a car that's supposed to run on premium. You wouldn't be feeding it regular gasoline, that type of thing, because it wears and tears on the engine. The engine runs too hot. And when you run too hot, you can't exercise. It starts slowing down. Even how your mentality, like how you think in your dream states and how well you sleep, a lot of that.
Before we went live, you told me a little bit about your background. I know that you have sold at least one practice. We are entrepreneurs. We happen to be in the legal space. You have grown up in the healthcare space. Talk to us a little bit about how you got to where you are, and how this interest, like in health and wellness, high-performing athletes, high-performing executives, how you found that space.
First off, I was the only girl with all boys about 8 blocks. So playing with my Barbie doll, this never hit the mark for me. But I could play baseball, football, basketball. I could flip my bike, ride it on the back tire, and do all those things like that.
Another vision from the past.
Yes.
So many folks have no idea what we're talking about.
The bicycle, when they had high handlebars, they were called Stingrays, right? Something like that.
With 3 speeds on these.
Oh, yeah, that was great too. I like those bikes because the handlebars were always higher, and ergonomically, it felt better to ride that bike than ride my Stingray, which I was always going forward like this. But I got sidetracked there. The piece of the things where I came from, like that's a big piece. The other thing is that I just grew up, because I played with boys, I was never scared of anything. I didn't do anything like really stupid, but I did get caught on top of a building before. I could climb up, but I couldn't figure out how to get down. That was not a good thing. And my father asked me what I wanted to do, what college I was going to go to when I was just finishing high school. And I went to a private school my whole life, at least for that part of it. And he asked me, where are you going to go to college? What have you thought about? I said, I don't want to go. And he said, what do you mean you don't want to go? And I said, no, I don't want to go to college. And he was flabbergasted. He said, let's go downtown Detroit. Because he always taught by doing something about it. And so we went to go downtown Detroit, and he pulled off on the old exit for Old Tiger Stadium, which is in a really bad area. And he pulled on this one street, and he said, get out of the car. And I said, why do I want to get out of the car here? And he said, because if you don't go to college, this is where you're going to live. And I thought, I'll go to the college of your choice. And he goes, no, just pick a house out, and I'll go up and ask them if they're interested in selling their house, and I'll buy it for you, since I saved up all that money for you to go to school. And it might give you a couple years of extra cash. In the meantime, I said, no, I'll go to school. And so I picked the school, and then I went. And then when I went to chiropractic school, he was beside himself because he thought that all chiropractors were quacks. That's when gasoline stations were like closing at a high number back like in the 80s, that kind of thing. And I can remember him telling me that, oh, yeah, you're going to have a gas station. You're going to have your $12,000 a year chiropractic practice. And he said, it'll be good for you. He goes, you'll be familiar with, my father used to have a string of gas stations. So I used to do books for him and stuff like that. And I said to him, no, don't worry about it, Dad. I said, I really wanted to press him on this one. I said, barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen, cooking. I said, that's more than enough, right? And he just laughed, and he goes, when are you leaving? So I went to chiropractic college in Atlanta, Georgia, from being from Michigan, and I never looked back. And then met my husband there, and then we opened a practice on Cape Cod together, and we bought a practice that's underserved, and we made it so that it could serve more people. And we did really well. Then I got divorced, and I bought him out of it, and then it really mushroomed. I needed 3 of me. So then I eventually sold it, moved to Boston, and that's when I decided to go to acupuncture school. And so when I went to acupuncture school, I just thought, wow, this is another very cool thing in my toolkit to be able to help people. Because sometimes one piece that isn't the end all in helping someone go across the finish line. And so I went, wow, this is a totally different perspective, and gives you a Western medicine kind of slant, acupuncture, but with the Asian Oriental medicine piece of it, which kind of like, oh, that's why that happens here in the base of your neck. Oh, and the light goes on and that type of thing. So it was a lot of fun learning that. And I've had years where I do coaching with high performance primarily, but I also, every once in a while, I'll listen to someone's story and I'll buy into it. And I'll just say, let's get you up to par. Let's get you where you want to go. If it's losing weight, then there's rules about losing weight. You understand that the body holds toxins, and you have to be able to get rid of those toxins in a fashion that's not going to make you sick. And so you first got to fix certain pieces of your body in order to be able to do that. And also, in where I'm at right now, an opportunity presented itself because I wanted to get out of Florida. And I was in Richmond for a little while. And so I'm up in Ithaca, New York. And I love college towns because there's so many smart, bright people that just have the opportunity to elevate in and then pick that up, that information up, and then do something special with it. You can see it in their faces. It's just really, for me, it's a lot of fun. Almost makes me want to go back to college again.
What's interesting is there are some universities or colleges around the country that are now building retirement housing in and around the campus.
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. I think this is
Sure.
cool. If I wasn't married and didn't have all these grandkids and stuff, like that would be a cool place to go to live, to be, because I think college is wasted on the young. Like I was a philosophy major. I would love to go back and do like philosophy courses with 18-year-olds. Like
Mhm.
that would be really fun now that you have this life experience. And so they're building these retirement communities in and around campuses, right, in order to enhance really the whole community.
Mhm.
So you have people like you living in and amongst and passing wisdom of the years back. And you're right, to really smart, inquisitive people like you and I both like to, I think, hang with people who are curious and who are
Mhm.
interested and who are
Right.
thinking of the next big idea. So that's a neat place. And you, I think you told me that you bought a practice or you moved into a practice or something in Ithaca.
Yeah, I'm joining a doctor in Ithaca today he found out how old I was. And he's thinking about winding it down. I'm thinking about winding it up. Yeah.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
and I get excited about that because I'll walk up to people and just say, "Oh, you had that shoulder problem. You should come see me." And then in this area here, Matt, I'm the only chiropractor that's the best-selling author four times, and have other accolades like the functional medicine and lifestyle medicine. Actually, have certification in it. So those things and like common sense. But I would love to see. I drove in this morning in a little different way by accident. And the view of the lake that Ithaca is on, it's 600 feet deep. From the point of view that I had, I go, I want to live here. This is where I want to live. And it was just, but I like the college town. There's another Ithaca College here also, and there's a community college. And you just have that buzz, like thinking minds. Like that was like always the fun thing about being in Cambridge and being around MIT. My first practice that I worked in was in Cambridge. And I thought, oh my God, I go, these people from MIT and Cambridge are so much more smarter than I am. But they didn't know anything about their health and they didn't know anything about their body.
Everybody. Look, so the lesson there is everybody has a superpower that they're really can be really smart in, and everybody has a place where they're hugely dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
And hanging out and just realizing that nobody is better than you are, right? Everybody is different, has their gifts. Look, this has been fabulous. Tell us a little bit about Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? Why should someone go and get that book?
Oh, they definitely want that book, and they want the book and not the Kindle version. And the reason why they want it is a book of questions. There's over 300 questions, as a matter of fact, but they're not overwhelming because they're broken up into 11 chapters. There's 12 chapters in total, one for men, one for women. And it's a book that is, a guidebook. Like you would never go to Morocco without a guidebook. When you're going to your health, you need a guidebook, you need a workbook, because you can write in it. And it's an advocacy tool so that when you actually fill it out, you can look at what your health pattern is at a given time. So it's always a good thing to do, like in January when you're making those New Year's resolutions, because these resolutions you can actually make them count. They're tangible, and there's things that you can move directly towards in finding those answers to that. And then, I also give you an opportunity. So if you got a question, you can always reach out to me and you can see how that pattern happens. So it's a really great book in regards to that, especially if you're health conscious and you want to make the most of in a short period of time going from A to Z. Because a lot of times I had one mentor who used to say he was from Utah and he used to have around 100 cowboy boots. That might be an exaggeration, but he had a lot of cowboy boots. And he always used to say, what you got isn't necessarily what you got. So we think we're treating something, you want to treat what the root cause of it is, not, you might want to take care of the ancillary type of like pains or the other discomforts, or why do I always feel bloated when I eat a banana? Maybe you're eating too much of a banana. Maybe a banana is not something that you should ever eat. And it's actually causing more harm for you than good, even though it's loaded with potassium. There's other ways to get potassium. It's just like having that awareness and being able to, like, I love the JFK line. It's just like a rising tide lifts all boats. My goal is to have the boats in my ocean not have any leaks.
Yes.
So that they all go up.
I can't tell you how many times I've gone to my chiropractor or my physical therapist with what I knew the diagnosis was to my little nagging injury of some sort and found out that I'm 100% wrong. Yeah. So if you're a lawyer, listen to this just for how Dr. Pat described what her website does and has on it. Like that's an interesting from a marketing and practice building perspective. Look, this has been fabulous. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise and spending some time with us today. It sounds like you're in a great part of the country, and actually a great part of your life right now, doing work that you like doing with people you love, for people that you like, because you said you like that community so much. So this has been awesome. Thanks so much.
If you like what you just heard on the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, you may be a perfect fit for the great legal marketing community. Law firm owners across the country are becoming heroes to their families and icons in their communities. They've gone renegade by rejecting the status quo of the legal profession so they can deliver high-quality legal services coupled with top-notch customer service to clients who pay, stay, and refer. Learn more at greatlegalmarketing.com. That's greatlegalmarketing.com.